Hey everybody, this is Britt with Vine Dresser Lawn and Landscape. Today, I'm going to go over an article that NC State just put out last week, and the title of the article is "What is a fungicide? That is the question." And so I want to kind of just read through it and then give a little commentary, and then try to make it make sense for what we're doing in the residential market. But if we get anything out of it today, this is what we want to get out of it. In summary, fungicides work and they work well. Many display curative activity when the appropriate time is allowed to recover. So fungicides work, appropriate time to recover for the grass to recover has to be allowed, and that should be focused on preventative control for disease management. We want to prevent the disease versus curing the disease. So you want to be on a fungicide program depending on the grass type. All right, so article starts off, I love saying that spring comes in like a lion and leaves like a lamb. It says we have no earthly idea what spring holds for us. By the end of spring, all will be okay unless summer shows up too quickly. We're going to have cool, wet periods followed by warm, humid periods or combinations that I could write forever about. And so what he's saying is that during springtime, the weather is all over the place. Pathogens of turfgrass are opportunistic and are waiting for the right time to infect and colonize. So fungus is waiting for the right time to infect and colonize, which could produce symptoms. And the key word being there, could produce symptoms. Plant disease is simply the plant's reaction to a pathogen, infection, and colonization. Many think that the plant should improve immediately if a fungicide is applied. Here comes the definition of a fungicide. It means fungus killer. So the fungicide is supposed to kill the fungus. Now, fungicides do kill fungal cells, and they can kill many fungal cells, but when a fungicide application is made, it does not eradicate the fungus. Essentially, the fungicide puts the fungus on pause, and once the fungicide dissipates and environmental conditions are suitable for fungus to grow, it does. And so the fungicide will stop the fungus from growing. Let's say that fungicide lasts 28 days. After 28 days, if the environment is conducive for fungus to continue to grow, it will, because that fungicide has worn off. And then he goes on to say, I know you bought the latest and greatest fungicide for a boatload of money. It should work immediately, right? Well, likely it does, but measuring fungal growth inside the plant is no trivial thing. Why doesn't the plant recover if it stops the fungus? So here's the answer to the first question. Why doesn't the plant recover if it stops the fungus, if the fungicide stops the fungus? Remember the statement above about how volatile springs can be? Well, imagine how plants respond to environmental stimuli that are all over the place. Not well at all. These fungicides work well and many work rapidly, but the fungicide does not dictate recovery. And so what dictates recovery is the plants require light, air, food, water, and specific temperature requirements to grow optimally. Though the fungicide is working, these conditions, light, air, food, water, and specific temperature requirements, are going to dictate the recovery of the turf grass. If those do not occur when the fungicide is applied, then the plant will not recover from symptoms induced by the pathogen. Hence, the disease is the plant's reaction to the pathogen, infection, and colonization. The pathogen in this particular case is fungus. It's hindered due to the application of fungicide. How long does it take for the plant to recover? The answer to that question depends on the time of year and many other conditions the turfgrass manager provides. And so how long it takes for your turfgrass to recover from disease is going to be determined by light, air, food, water, specific temperature requirements. And so we can sum that up to say what type of season it is, what season we're in, and we are fertilizing and watering correctly. And so, an example, you've got fungus in the fall, you're not going to get recovery until late spring, early summer of the next year. You got fungus in the spring, you're not going to get recovery until summer when the grass is actively growing. You got fungus in the summer, you're going to get fast recovery because the grass is actively growing. And so weather plays a huge part of how quick your turf recovers from fungus disease. When samples are submitted to the Turfgrass Diagnostic Lab, it's a common question. What is the common question? How long will it take the plant to recover? Therefore, we decided to examine this question in our program here at NC State. The first experiment we established was to see how long creeping bent grass would take to recover from dollar spot with single applications of some of the finest fungicides. So they wanted to see how long it would take bent grass to recover from dollar spots when applying fungicides. The bottom line is the plants in our trial took 2 weeks to overcome the disease. All right, so the question was asked, I've been presented this data a few times, and a common critique, people said, well, hey, which is valid, they didn't apply any fertility to promote regrowth. They did another experiment. We added urea to it, which is nitrogen fertilizer, a plant growth regulator. Neither product aided or hindered recovery from dollar spot in our trials compared to applying a fungicide alone. So the trials with just the fungicide, and then trials with fungicide plus nitrogen plus plant growth regulator. In the 2 separate experiments replicated twice each, it is remarkable that in each experiment it took 2 weeks for creeping bent grass to recover. Thus, a foliar disease develops on your turf this time of year in the time of May. Please only expect rapid recovery once conditions are suitable for plant regrowth. And so if it's not warm in May, if it's not extremely warm in May and your warm season grass isn't actively growing, don't expect rapid recovery. Only expect rapid recovery once conditions are suitable for plant regrowth. All right, you might wonder what happens when the pathogen affects the root, stolons, or rhizomes. So this is a foliar disease. This is a root stolon, and this is a root disease. Since the pathogen likely caused the damage when the environment was conducive for growth at a different time. So the fungus caused damage at a different time from when the symptoms occurred. So the damage was done at a different time than when you see the symptoms. Curative control may not be possible. If all pathogens have a defined incubation period at the time from infection to the expression of symptoms. Many foliar pathogens have incubation periods of a few days to even a week. So foliar disease, you're going to see the symptoms from a few days to a few weeks. But root pathogens may take 14 to 28 days to colonize enough root tissue to cause damage. So a foliar disease might take a few days to a week. Root disease might take 14 to 28 days, meaning that more damage has been it's slower to do the damage, but the damage is more extent. All right. Give an example of take-all root rot and Bermuda grass. Took about 21 days to cause symptoms. So they give this example. Imagine warm, wet October followed by cold November and December. This would allow the pathogens to infect and cause root damage in October, but since the cold developed in November, Bermuda grass would likely start dormancy and symptoms may not develop. Since the plants are not growing and developing new roots, the damage has already been done, and symptoms develop in the spring as Bermuda grass wakes out of dormancy. So the damage was done in October. You see no symptoms. This will be frustrating because the symptoms are present, yet applying a fungicide is useless because the pathogen is not active during this time. So in this scenario, a fungicide is going to be useless because you see the damage in spring. Another example would be large patch in centipede lawn. The damage is done in September, October, but you don't see it until it comes out of dormancy in spring. If that fungus is not active, the fungicide is not really going to do anything. Your best bet is to top dress those areas with sand, and then once the grass starts actively growing again, it'll be easier to fill in those bare or damaged areas. Another critical point with fungicide applications is the fungus must be actively growing for the fungicide to be effective, as the fungus absorbs the fungicides while it grows. So if you put it on symptoms and the fungus was in the fall and you see the symptoms in the spring, that fungicide is not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything to speed up the recovery of that area. You're just going to have to wait until it naturally. So another scenario, what about a disease develops when the pathogen is active? All right, so they examined Pythium root rot and creeping bentgrass, and they allowed the root rot to develop, and average 30% of the disease was present in each plot. So they had one plot, they applied excellent Pythium root rot products. Other plot, they did nothing to it. We observed curative control as disease severity in the non-treated control plots continued to increase throughout the study. So disease severity increased on the plots that they did not put any fungicide down. Yet disease severity decreased dramatically compared to the non-treated control plots treated with fungicides. And so you can see here on this graph that all these lines here of fungicides went down from 30% and went at the peak, it was at above 45%, it went down to 20%. Non-treated areas, 65 to 70%. So when the fungus is actively growing, fungicides do stop the disease from increasing, and they decrease the severity a little bit. In summary, fungicides work, and they work well. Many display strong curative activity when the appropriate time is allowed to recover. And that's the key. You put the fungicide down, you have to allow time for the grass to recover. If you're putting a fungicide down in the fall, do not expect that area to recover the spring of next year. And I would say the end of May, beginning of June, when the grass starts actively growing again. If you put a fungicide down in the spring, jumping into summer, I'd expect it to be faster. If it's in the middle of summer, recovery, fall, winter, I would expect very slow recovery, because you got to wait till that grass is actively growing again. You got to wait for air, food, water, and specific temperature requirements for that grass turf type to recover. Understandably, the turfgrass industry's clientele wants, even demands, results immediately that are only feasible in some situations. I mean, if you got a lot of money, you can dump a ton of fungicides on it and get some more control. This is why so many turfgrass pathologists focus on preventative control disease management. I would say here's the crux of the whole article is you need to know your turf type, what diseases attack that turf type, and then get on a preventative maintenance program for those diseases. If a disease develops at your facility or property, get the disease diagnosed, take preventative measures, educate the clientele on the reality of the situation. Depending on the type of year is going to depend on the recovery and how much recovery you get. It may not recover at all depending on the severity and it being in fall/winter time frame. If disease, eventually the symptoms will subside as long as growth is not hindered too much. And so that would be like if you've got severe disease damage in the fall, obviously you're not going to get any growth until spring or summer of next year. And then here's the key, and preventative measures can be employed in the future. And so I sum it up by saying this: you need to know your turf type. You need to know what disease program you need for that turf type. Preventative is way better than curative measures. And so I would close by saying this: if you're switching from lawn care company to lawn care company and you've got disease issues, and that new company doesn't know you have disease issues or where those disease issues are, and it doesn't treat those disease issues, you're going to continue to have the disease issues, and your grass is going to continue to look the same because you're going from company to company, and you're never getting on a preventative disease program. I hope this helps. We can help you out anyway. Let us know. Have a good day.